The planet Veyron 9 was not kind to strangers. Its skies were painted in red and gold as if the sun itself had been bruised. The land below was dense with crimson forests, tall trees with sharp metallic leaves that whispered with the wind. Strange insects glowed faintly in the shadows, and the air carried a sharp metallic scent. For humans like Captain Elias Ryder, it was hostile and beautiful at the same time, a planet that tested every step, every breath. Elias moved quietly, scanning the trees around him. He led a small reconnaissance team of 5 soldiers, all humans, all trained to survive in hostile worlds. Their mission was simple on paper: gather intelligence on the Arakan, the alien species that had been raiding human outposts in the nearby systems. But simple missions rarely stayed simple on Veyron 9. The forest was eerily quiet. No birds, no familiar noises, only the hum of the wind and the distant cries of creatures unknown. Elias's instinct screamed that danger was near. He gestured for the team to halt. "Something's off," he whispered. "Eyes sharp. Stay low." They moved carefully, following a narrow path that cut between jagged roots and thick vines. Elias's hand hovered near his plasma rifle, ready, but his mind raced. The Arakan were clever. They did not just attack. They planned, they observed, and they waited for the perfect moment to strike. A sudden snap of a branch broke the quiet. Elias froze. His team followed his lead, pressing against the trees, eyes scanning. Then, with terrifying speed, shadowy figures dropped from the branches. The Arakan. They were taller than humans, with 4 long limbs and dark armored skin. Their eyes glowed an icy blue in the dim light. They moved like predators, silent and precise. "Ambush!" Elias shouted, firing his rifle. Energy bolts streaked through the air. His team returned fire, taking cover behind massive roots. The forest erupted in chaos. Flashes of light, the smell of ozone, the screams of men, and the shrill cries of the Arakan. In the middle of the battle, Elias saw her. A young Arakan girl, no more than 12 by human standards, trapped beneath a fallen tree. She struggled weakly, her eyes wide with fear. For a moment she seemed frozen in terror, unsure whether to scream or stay still. Elias's heart skipped a beat. He knew she was the enemy. Any sane soldier would leave her. But something inside him, a part he could not ignore, made him act. "Move now," he yelled to his team. "Cover me!" Without hesitation, Elias sprinted through the chaos. He ducked, rolled, and dodged energy blasts. Reaching the girl, he knelt beside her. "It's okay," he said softly, though he doubted she understood him. "I'm getting you out." The girl's blue eyes locked onto his, wide and terrified. She shrank back instinctively, as if expecting a blow. Elias ignored the stares and whispers from his soldiers behind him. He lifted the heavy branch with a grunt, feeling the burn in his muscles. Finally, he freed the girl. She stumbled, barely able to stand. "Stay with me," he ordered gently, taking her arm to guide her. Bullets and energy bolts flew past them as Elias carried the girl through the thick forest. His own soldiers provided covering fire, keeping the Arakan at bay. Every step was dangerous, but leaving her was not an option. After what felt like hours, they found a small clearing. Elias laid the girl down carefully. She shivered, her body weak and trembling. "You're safe. For now," he said. The soldiers approached, cautious. "Sir, she's Arakan," said Lieutenant Mara, her voice tight. "We should—" "No," Elias interrupted firmly. "We're not leaving her here to die. She's a child. That's all that matters." There was a tense silence. The soldiers knew better than to argue with Elias when his mind was made up. Survival or not, he would protect life if he could. Night fell quickly over Veyron 9. The crimson forest grew darker, shadows thickening like a living thing. Elias made a small camp with the team, using portable energy barriers to provide light and protection. He sat beside the girl, watching her closely. She had not moved much, staring at him with cautious curiosity. "You can't speak, can you?" Elias asked gently. She only blinked. He sighed. "Doesn't matter. We'll find a way to understand each other." Slowly, the girl began to reach out, touching his hand, then recoiling. It was a silent test. Elias smiled softly. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." Hours passed. The forest made strange noises, and every shadow felt alive. Elias stayed awake, rifle at the ready. Occasionally, he saw glimmers of Arakan scouts in the distance. They had not yet given up searching, but they had not attacked either. Perhaps they were confused, unsure why a human would save one of their own. Elias used the quiet moments to think. Saving the girl could have consequences. His own command would question him. Other humans might not understand. But he could not shake the feeling that this act, small as it seemed, could change something. He looked at her again. She had faintly blue skin, small yet sharp claws, and hair that shimmered like silver threads. She was fragile in appearance, but he sensed intelligence behind her fearful eyes. She was not a weapon yet, only a child with a mother who ruled the Arakan. He whispered to her in a soft tone, "I'll keep you safe, whatever it takes." The girl tilted her head, almost as if she understood. For the first time, her tense body relaxed slightly. She lay back, closing her eyes, exhausted. Elias watched over her through the night, barely sleeping, always alert. In the morning, the forest seemed less threatening, though danger lingered. Birds, or something like them, screeched in the distance. Elias roused his team. "We move," he said. "We have to find a safe path to the neutral zone. Keep her close." "No one leaves her behind," Lieutenant Mara frowned but nodded. "Sir, are you sure about this?" Elias met her gaze. "I'm sure. War is not just about winning battles. Sometimes it's about doing what's right." They moved cautiously through the forest. Elias kept the girl between himself and the path ahead, always watching for signs of Arakan. The girl, now calmer, occasionally reached out to touch his arm or shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of trust. Elias felt a warmth in his chest he had not expected. Protecting life, even that of an enemy, was more than duty. It was human. By midday, they reached a narrow river cutting through the forest. Its waters were a strange silver blue, flowing quietly despite the thick foliage. Elias paused to let the girl drink, carefully lifting her to the edge. She drank hesitantly, then stared at him with wide, trusting eyes. "You're brave," he said softly. "Braver than you know." The team set up temporary defenses. Elias scanned the horizon, calculating their next steps. He knew the Arakan would pursue them eventually. They always did. But he also knew that leaving the girl behind was not an option. He had made a choice, and choices defined who humans were, what they could become. As night approached again, Elias felt a presence, a sense that they were being watched. Shadows moved in the corner of his vision. He tightened his grip on the girl's small hand. "Stay close," he murmured. "Whatever comes, we face it together." And in that moment, something changed. The girl's eyes, once fearful, now reflected a spark of understanding. Perhaps she did not know his language, but she knew his heart. Elias did not know what the future held. He did not know if the Arakan would forgive him, or if humans would approve. But he did know one thing. He had saved a life, and that life now depended on him. In the wild, crimson forests of Veyron 9, a human and an alien child began a journey that neither would forget. One act of courage could not end the war, but it could begin something stronger. Trust, hope, and a reminder that even in the darkest of times, humanity could shine. The next morning, the crimson forest of Veyron 9 seemed even more alive. The sun cast a reddish glow over the jagged trees, painting the leaves with sharp streaks of light. Elias Ryder moved cautiously, carrying his small burden, the young Arakan girl Lyria, through the dense foliage. Her small hands clung to his arm as if afraid of being separated again, and Elias could feel the tension in her body. He had made camp overnight, using portable shields to keep the Arakan scouts away, but the forest had not been silent. Strange noises had echoed through the trees, cries of unknown creatures and the metallic rustle of leaves brushing against one another. Elias had stayed awake much of the night, scanning the shadows, knowing that danger was never far behind. "Keep moving," he whispered to his team. "We need to reach the ridge before dark. That will give us a safer vantage point." The team nodded, following Elias's lead. Lieutenant Mara glanced at Lyria, who was beginning to mimic small movements, cautiously copying the way humans walked. She did not speak, but her eyes followed every gesture, every sign of communication. Elias noticed, and a faint smile crossed his face. "She's learning," he said softly to Mara. "Even if she doesn't speak our language, she understands intentions." Mara frowned but didn't argue. "Let's just hope the Arakan scouts don't understand human intentions," she muttered. The journey was slow. The forest floor was littered with roots and jagged stones that threatened to trip them at every step. The further they went, the more Elias realized that Lyria had begun to watch him carefully, not like a frightened child, but like someone trying to understand who he was. Every movement, every choice he made seemed to impress upon her a lesson. At midday they came across a stream. The water was clear and cold, cutting through the red landscape like a silver thread. Elias knelt beside it, letting Lyria drink first. She hesitated at first, looking at him as if seeking permission. When he nodded gently, she bent forward and drank, the liquid spilling slightly from the sides of her mouth. "You're brave, Lyria," Elias said, using the name he had given her. "You've survived a lot already, and you'll survive more, but we're here to help you." She looked up at him, her eyes wide and glowing faintly in the sunlight, and for a moment Elias felt a strange connection. It was not just a child trusting a rescuer. It was something deeper, a quiet understanding that transcended words. But trust, as Elias knew, was fragile. By mid-afternoon, signs of the Arakan scouts became clearer. Broken branches, footprints in the mud, and the occasional faint shimmer of movement between the trees warned him that they were being followed. Elias knew they had no time to rest. The Arakan would not give up easily. "Set up a perimeter," he ordered his team. "We rest here for a short time, then move again. Keep watch in all directions." As the soldiers worked, Lyria wandered slightly, her small feet careful on the uneven ground. Elias followed closely, ready to intervene if she stepped into danger. She picked up a smooth stone and held it in her hand, examining it with curiosity. "What do you see?" he asked quietly, kneeling beside her. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting both fear and wonder. Then slowly she handed him the stone. Elias accepted it, nodding with understanding. It was a simple gesture, but in that moment, he felt her beginning to trust him, not just as someone who saved her, but as someone she could rely on. The team ate quickly, sharing small rations as Elias scanned the surrounding forest. He knew the Arakan would not attack openly. They were patient, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But Elias had no choice. They could not stay in one place for long. As the sun began to dip lower, Elias decided it was time to move again. He helped Lyria to her feet and secured her to his back with a small harness the team had fashioned. Carrying her was tiring, but he did not complain. She rested her head against his shoulder, trusting him completely. The forest grew darker and the shadows longer. Strange glowing insects flickered in the dim light, giving the impression that the forest itself was alive and watching. Elias's team moved silently, following his lead. Every sound was a potential threat, every movement a possible trap. Suddenly, a low hum echoed through the trees. Elias froze, signaling his team to halt. The hum grew louder, resonating through the ground and air alike. It was a warning sound, one he had never heard before but instinctively recognized as dangerous. "Stay low," he whispered, "and stay close to me." From the shadows, the first Arakan scout appeared, its 4 limbs moving with unnatural speed. Elias raised his rifle, firing carefully. The energy bolts struck the scout, but more appeared from the trees surrounding them. The forest seemed alive with enemies, moving silently but deliberately. "Focus on defense," Elias shouted. "Keep her safe." The team formed a protective circle around Lyria. She crouched low, her small hands clutching Elias's arm. He felt her trembling, but knew she trusted him enough to stay calm in the face of danger. Elias fired with precision, his years of training evident in every movement. Yet the scouts were relentless, circling and testing their defense. Then, unexpectedly, one of the scouts hesitated. It observed Lyria, its head tilting slightly. Elias noticed the hesitation and took a calculated risk. He lowered his rifle slightly, speaking softly, though the scout could not understand him. "She is just a child," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "Leave her alone." The scout froze for a moment longer, then retreated into the shadows. The others followed slowly, unwilling to engage further. Elias exhaled sharply, relief flooding him. "You okay?" he asked, glancing down at Lyria. She nodded slightly, her eyes still wide but calmer than before. She touched his hand gently as if thanking him. Elias smiled softly, realizing that small gestures often spoke louder than words. They continued their journey, moving cautiously through the forest. By nightfall, they found a small clearing near a hill. Elias set up camp again, using energy barriers and small sensors to detect approaching threats. Lyria sat close to him, watching his every move. He showed her how to make small defensive measures, like how to use the sensors and barriers to protect themselves. "You learn fast," he said quietly. "Even if you don't understand words, you understand actions." The night was quiet, save for the distant sounds of the forest. Elias took turns with his team, keeping watch while allowing Lyria to rest. She curled up beside him, her small body shaking slightly, but he kept his hand on her shoulder, a silent promise of protection. As the hours passed, Elias reflected on the journey so far. Saving Lyria had been risky, but he had no regrets. In a world defined by conflict, he realized that acts of compassion could be as powerful as acts of strength. The child had changed the way he viewed the mission, the war, and even himself. In the dim light of the camp, Lyria finally spoke her first word, though Elias could not understand it. She repeated it softly, her voice trembling. He reached out, touching her hand gently. "It's okay," he whispered. "I may not understand your words, but I understand what you mean. You trust me." She nodded slightly, leaning closer. Elias knew that trust was a fragile thing, earned slowly, especially in a world filled with enemies. But it was growing, and it gave him hope. By dawn, the forest had changed again. Light filtered through the crimson leaves, casting long shadows across the ground. Elias helped Lyria to her feet, preparing for another day of careful travel. They would face more dangers, more unknown threats, but he was ready. "Remember," he said to his team, "we protect her at all costs. She's not just a child. She's a reminder of why we fight, and why we must never lose our humanity." The team nodded, understanding the weight of their mission. Lyria watched them silently, her small hands gripping Elias's arm. And for the first time, she seemed less like a captive and more like someone who belonged, at least for now, to the humans who had risked everything to save her. The forest of Veyron 9 was vast and dangerous, but Elias knew one truth above all. Trust, courage, and compassion could survive even in the darkest places. And as he led the small group forward, he felt that this journey, this strange bond with a child of the enemy, might change more than just their own fates. It might change the war itself. The sun had just begun to rise over the jagged horizon of Veyron 9. Crimson light poured through the dense forest, turning the metallic leaves into molten streaks of red and gold. Captain Elias Ryder led his team carefully, Lyria riding on his back, her small hands gripping his shoulders tightly. They had left their temporary camp behind, moving deeper into the unknown forest, seeking a safer path to a neutral zone far from the reach of the Arakan patrols. The forest around them felt alive, almost as if it were watching their every move. Strange glowing insects flitted through the trees, leaving trails of light behind them. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow among the roots made Elias tense. He knew the Arakan were clever, patient hunters. They would follow, wait for the perfect moment to strike. And strike they would if given the chance. Elias paused, scanning the horizon. "We're not far from the ridge," he whispered to his team. "If we reach it, we can see the valley below and plan our next move." "Stay alert." Lyria stirred quietly on his back. She had grown quieter over the past few days, observing more, learning the ways of humans. Her trust in Elias was increasing, though still fragile. Each time he crouched to check the sensors or whispered a direction, she watched him intently, absorbing everything. The team moved slowly, stepping over roots and carefully navigating around jagged rocks. Lieutenant Mara glanced at Elias, her expression tense. "Sir, do you really think they're following us this far?" "They could have called reinforcements by now." Elias shook his head. "The Arakan are patient. They don't act without reason, but I've seen hesitation in their movements. They may be curious about the girl, or about me. Either way, we have to keep moving." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled slightly. Elias froze, signaling the team to stop. The tremor was subtle but unmistakable, too measured to be a natural quake. Then he saw it. A group of Arakan scouts moving silently through the trees, their blue eyes glinting in the filtered sunlight. "They found us," Elias whispered, his voice low. He adjusted the harness holding Lyria and gestured for the team to form a protective circle. "Keep her safe. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." The scouts advanced cautiously, observing, testing their courage. Elias noticed something unusual. They did not attack immediately. Instead, one of them, smaller than the others, paused, staring at Lyria with an intensity that made him uneasy. He realized what it meant. The Arakan were not just looking for a lost child. They were evaluating her, measuring the risk of the human who had taken her. Elias stepped forward slightly, his hands raised but tense. "She is just a child," he shouted in their language. though he doubted they could understand him. The lead scout tilted its head, studying him silently. Then, without warning, it signaled to the others. Instead of attacking, they retreated, melting back into the shadows. Elias exhaled sharply, lowering Lyria to the ground briefly. "That was unusual," he muttered. She looked up at him, eyes wide but calm. Her small hand reached for his, and he grasped it firmly. "Let's keep moving," he said. "We need to reach the ridge before nightfall. If the Arakan are curious, we need to stay ahead of them." The journey continued, and the forest began to thin as they climbed a steep incline. The ridge offered a breathtaking view of the valley below, where silver-blue rivers wound through the red plains, reflecting the light of the twin suns. Elias took a moment to breathe, scanning the terrain. "We can rest here for a short while," he said, motioning to the team. "From this vantage point, we can plan a safer path." But no one lets their guard down. Lyria climbed down from his back, moving cautiously on the uneven ground. She bent down, touching a patch of glowing moss, then looked up at Elias, her eyes shining with curiosity. "You see," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "Even here, in a strange world, there is beauty, and sometimes that beauty can give us strength." The team set up a small camp on the ridge using energy barriers for protection. Sensors were placed strategically to detect any approaching threats. Elias stayed near Lyria, keeping her close and talking softly. For hours they rested. Lyria began to mimic Elias's movements, copying how he adjusted the barriers and checked the sensors. It was a silent lesson, and Elias watched with quiet pride. She was learning, not just about survival, but about trust, observation, and patience. As the twin suns dipped lower, casting long shadows across the valley, Elias felt a presence, a heavy, almost regal presence that made the hairs on the back of his neck rise. He scanned the horizon and froze. A figure stood on a distant ridge, partially hidden by trees, observing them. It was tall, imposing, and unlike the scouts they had encountered before, its armor glinted faintly in the fading sunlight, and its eyes, sharp and calculating, locked onto him. "She's here," Elias whispered to himself, realization dawning. The queen, Vera. The Arakan queen was known throughout their species for her strength, intelligence, and unyielding authority. To face her was to face judgment, and Elias knew that his actions, saving her daughter, would bring her attention. "She's not going to attack immediately," Elias said to his team. "She's evaluating. Watch and stay ready." Lyria clung to him, sensing his tension. Elias gently patted her hand. "Don't be afraid. We will face her together." Night fell quickly, and the forest transformed once more. Strange lights danced between the trees, and the sounds of nocturnal creatures echoed through the valley. Elias set up additional sensors, creating a defensive perimeter. He knew the queen would test him before making any decisions, and he had to be prepared for anything. Hours passed with no direct confrontation, but the presence of Queen Vera was constant, like a shadow that could strike at any moment. Elias spoke softly to Lyria, explaining what might happen. She listened intently, her small hands gripping his arm. "You may not understand everything," he said, "but you must trust me. We are here to protect you no matter what." Lyria nodded slightly, leaning closer. For the first time, Elias felt that their bond had grown beyond simple trust. It was understanding. Even in silence, they communicated. Suddenly, movement flickered on the ridge above them. Elias stiffened, signaling the team to prepare. A figure emerged fully into view, its form tall and commanding. The queen. Her armor shimmered in the moonlight, and her eyes glowed with a fierce intelligence. She descended slowly, deliberately, her every movement radiating authority. Elias stepped forward, standing between the queen and Lyria. He raised his hand slightly, a gesture of peace. "I saved her because she is a child," he said firmly, his voice calm but resolute. "I will protect her with my life." Queen Vera stopped a few meters away, her gaze fixed on him. For a long moment there was silence, broken only by the faint rustle of the wind. Then she spoke, her voice low but commanding. "Why?" Elias met her eyes. "Because life is life," he replied simply. "Because compassion is not weakness. Because even in war there is a choice to protect what is innocent." The queen studied him, her expression unreadable. Lyria watched silently, her small form tense but trusting. Elias realized that his actions had caught her attention, not with words but with deeds. Hours passed as they observed one another. The queen did not attack. She did not withdraw. She merely watched, testing his resolve, his courage, and his intentions. Elias remained steady, showing no fear, no hesitation. Finally, Queen Vera spoke again. "You may have saved my daughter," she said, "but saving her does not prove your worth. You will face trials to show that your intentions are true." Elias nodded. "I will face whatever is required," he said firmly. "My loyalty to life, to what is right, will not waver." The queen's gaze softened slightly, though it remained fierce. She stepped back, signaling the end of this first encounter. "Then be ready," she said. "The trials will come soon. You will have to prove that your heart is as strong as your courage." Lyria reached for Elias's hand, her small fingers intertwining with his. He smiled, feeling a surge of hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he would not abandon her. He would protect her, guide her, and face whatever trials the queen devised. As night deepened over Veron 9, Elias gazed at the stars barely visible through the crimson canopy. He felt a quiet determination settle within him. The journey ahead would be dangerous, filled with unknown trials and tests. But he knew one thing. Humanity's courage and compassion could shine even in the face of the fiercest enemies. And in that quiet moment, he realized that the bond he had formed with Lyria and the respect he had earned from her mother might be the first step toward something far greater than survival. It might be the first step toward peace. The morning sun filtered through the crimson forest, casting long shadows across the uneven ground. Elias Ryder awoke to the soft rustling of leaves and the faint glow of bioluminescent insects. Lyria was already awake, sitting quietly beside him, her small fingers tracing the patterns on a smooth stone. She looked at him, and for the first time he felt the full weight of responsibility he carried. Today would be the first trial. Queen Vera had declared that Elias must prove his courage, intelligence, and loyalty, not through words but through deeds. It was not a simple test. It was a challenge designed to measure a being's worth, and failure could mean the end not just for him, but for the trust he had begun to build with Lyria. The queen arrived without warning, stepping lightly through the forest. Her presence was commanding, her armor reflecting the red light of the dawn. Lyria ran to her mother, clinging to her with relief. But Elias stayed his ground, standing tall despite the tension in the air. "Your first trial begins now," Queen Vera said, her voice calm but unyielding. "You will navigate the caverns of Zyre. Many have entered. Few have returned. Your courage, wisdom, and respect for life will be tested." Elias nodded. "I understand. I will do my best." The queen's gaze softened slightly, though it remained sharp. "I will be watching. Do not fail." The path to the caverns of Zyre was treacherous. The forest gave way to jagged cliffs and narrow ledges. Elias moved carefully, guiding his team and Lyria along the winding path. Every step required focus. One wrong move could mean a fall into the deep ravines below. Lyria clung to him, her small body trembling slightly. "Stay close," he whispered. "We will face this together." As they approached the entrance of the caverns, Elias paused. The mouth of the cave yawned before them, dark and foreboding, with faint blue light emanating from within. Strange symbols were etched into the rocks, glowing faintly as if alive. Elias scanned the carvings, recognizing them as warnings. The caverns were not merely a physical challenge. They were a test of judgment, awareness, and morality. He turned to his team. "Keep your sensors active. Watch for traps. And remember, we protect Lyria at all costs." The team nodded, moving cautiously into the cave. Lyria followed, her small hands gripping Elias's arm. The air inside was cool and damp, carrying a faint metallic scent. Shadows danced across the walls, and the echo of dripping water sounded like distant whispers. Elias led them deeper, every sense alert. The first challenge appeared almost immediately. A narrow bridge of stone stretched across a chasm, the gap below dark and endless. The bridge was unstable, small rocks shifting with every step. Elias went first, testing the stones carefully before motioning for his team to follow. Slowly. "Watch your footing," he instructed. Lyria followed hesitantly, trusting his guidance. Each careful step brought them closer to the other side. Midway, a portion of the bridge gave way, falling into the darkness below. Elias reacted quickly, catching Lyria's arm and pulling her to safety. "See?" he whispered, smiling gently. "Caution and awareness keep us safe." The team continued, facing multiple obstacles. Jagged stalagmites, sudden drops, and narrow passages that forced them to squeeze through one by one. At each challenge, Elias demonstrated calm judgment and quick thinking. He guided Lyria, ensuring she remained safe, and encouraged his team to work together rather than rush forward. Hours passed, and the final trial revealed itself. A wide chamber opened before them, filled with a strange, glowing mist. In the center stood a pool of water, clear but shimmering with an otherworldly light. At its edge sat a creature, wounded and struggling to free itself from a trap. Elias recognized it immediately, not an Orakan, but a wild creature native to Veyron 9. Many would ignore it, focusing solely on reaching the chamber's exit, but Elias knelt beside it. "We do not leave anyone behind," he said softly, checking the trap. Using careful movements, he freed the creature, ensuring it could move safely. Lyria watched, her small eyes wide with admiration. Queen Vera's voice echoed through the chamber. "You understand the value of life," she said. "You have shown courage, intelligence, and compassion. These are the traits I look for, even in an enemy. Yet one final test remains: your heart." Elias looked up, meeting her gaze. "I do not need words to understand what must be done. Protect life. Respect courage. Honor trust. That is my heart." The queen studied him silently, then motioned to the exit of the cavern. "Go. Your journey is not yet complete, but you have proven your worth." Relief washed over Elias. He helped Lyria to her feet, and together with his team, they exited the caverns. Sunlight greeted them, bright and warm after the cool darkness inside. Lyria ran to her mother, hugging her tightly. Queen Vera studied Elias once more, her expression unreadable but thoughtful. "You have done more than I expected," she said finally. "Many humans would not have risked their lives for one of my kind. You have shown that courage and morality are not bound by race or species. Remember this lesson well. Your actions have earned my respect." Elias nodded, his heart pounding. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what I believed was right." The queen turned to Lyria, who looked up at her with trust and admiration. "And this child," she said, "has chosen to trust a human. That is rare, even among our kind." Lyria smiled shyly, her small hand slipping into Elias's. He felt a warmth spread through him, a sense of accomplishment and connection unlike any he had ever known. "From this day forward," Queen Vera continued, "you are no longer merely a human to me. You are ours." Elias blinked in surprise. "Ours?" he asked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Your actions have proven that humanity can rise above fear, above war, and act with honor," the queen said. "You have earned a place among those we respect. Protect her as you have done, and you will have our trust." Lyria squeezed his hand, her small face radiant with joy. Elias felt a surge of pride. Not for personal glory, but for the bridge he had built between humans and Orakan. A fragile bond born of courage, compassion, and trust. The journey back through the forest was lighter than before. The dangers had not vanished, but Elias moved with confidence, knowing that the queen had not only tested him but acknowledged his integrity. Lyria skipped alongside him, asking questions in her limited human vocabulary. He answered patiently, explaining the forest, the rivers, and the creatures they encountered. By evening, they reached a safe clearing. The team set up camp, and Elias finally allowed himself to rest. Lyria curled up beside him, her small body trusting and relaxed. Elias watched the stars through the crimson canopy, thinking of the challenges that still lay ahead. "Tomorrow," he whispered to himself, "we continue. But today we have done what was right." The forest was quiet yet alive with energy. Somewhere in the distance, the Orakan queen observed them, her presence a silent reminder of the balance between trust and duty. Elias knew that challenges would come again, that dangers were never far away. But for the first time, he felt that he had made a difference. That even in a universe filled with war, courage and compassion could shine. And as Lyria drifted to sleep, Elias placed a hand on her small shoulder, promising silently to protect her, to guide her, and to honor the trust they had built together. For he understood more deeply than ever that the heart of humanity lay not in power or weapons, but in courage, empathy, and the willingness to do what is right, no matter the cost. In the crimson forests of Veyron 9, a human had faced judgment and through courage and honor, had earned a place not only in the trust of a child, but in the respect of a queen. And for Elias Ryder, that was more than victory. It was proof that humanity could shine even in the darkest corners of the universe. The crimson forests of Veyron 9 glowed softly under the twin suns as Captain Elias Ryder and his team prepared for the next stage of their journey. Lyria walked beside him now, her small hands brushing against his arm as they moved cautiously. The trust between them had grown stronger with each challenge, each shared danger. No longer just a rescued child, she was a companion, a silent student learning the ways of humanity and courage. Queen Vera had granted Elias her respect, acknowledging his courage, intelligence, and compassion. Yet Elias knew the journey was far from over. The Arakan and humans had been enemies for generations, and deep-seated mistrust could not vanish overnight. The trials had built a bridge, but that bridge needed careful steps to become a lasting path. Elias led the team toward the edge of the forest, where the dense trees gave way to the vast plains of Veyron 9. The view was breathtaking. Rivers of silver blue snaked through red terrain, dotted with jagged rock formations that shimmered faintly under the suns. For a moment, Elias allowed himself to breathe, appreciating the beauty of the planet that had tested him so fiercely. "We need to reach the neutral zone," he said, speaking to his team and Lyria. "Once we are there, we can establish communication with both human and Arakan leaders. This is our chance to begin something greater." Lyria tilted her head, studying him with wide eyes. She pointed to the horizon, then to herself as if asking a question. Elias smiled gently. "Yes, this is your world too," he said softly. "And your mother trusts me now as you do. We will protect it together." The journey was not without peril. Arakan scouts still patrolled the outer edges of their territory, testing the humans' movements. Elias used every skill he had, strategy, stealth, and intuition, to keep the team and Lyria safe. He taught her to observe quietly, to notice small details in the environment, and to sense danger before it arrived. Her natural curiosity and intelligence allowed her to learn quickly. As they approached a narrow canyon, Elias paused. From the cliffs above, small figures emerged, Arakan warriors armed but cautious. Elias raised a hand, signaling his team to halt. He stepped forward, showing no fear. Lyria clutched his arm, sensing the tension but trusting his judgment. "Hold your fire," he whispered. "They are testing us, not attacking yet." A tall Arakan figure descended slowly, gliding down the rocks with remarkable agility. Elias recognized her immediately, a senior envoy from Queen Vera herself. She stopped a few meters away, eyes studying every movement, her posture radiating authority. "You have brought the child safely this far," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You have proven your worth to my queen. But trust is fragile. You must now show that your intentions extend beyond a single act of heroism." Elias nodded. "I understand. My goal is not only to protect Lyria but to build understanding between our peoples. We can be allies, not enemies." The envoy studied him silently, then motioned for them to follow. They led the humans and Lyria to a hidden plateau overlooking the plains below. There, representatives from Arakan and human factions had gathered, cautiously observing each other. Tension filled the air, but Elias felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. Queen Vera stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. She spoke clearly, addressing both sides. "This human, Elias Ryder, has done what few could," she said. "He has protected life, shown courage, and acted with integrity. He has earned our trust, and through him, I extend an offer of dialogue. Let this be the beginning of a new understanding." The human commander of the neutral zone stepped forward, cautiously nodding. "We have seen his actions. Perhaps this is the chance to change the course of history." Elias looked at Lyria. She stood close to him, small but radiant with confidence. For her, this was not only about safety, it was about witnessing the possibility of peace, a future where humans and Arakan could coexist. He addressed both groups, his voice steady. "We cannot erase the past, nor can we ignore the mistakes we have made. But today we have a choice. We can fight endlessly, or we can work together. I choose to work together, to protect life and build trust. Let this be our path forward." The silence that followed was heavy, as both sides considered his words. Then slowly, representatives from both humans and Arakan began to step closer, observing not with suspicion but with cautious curiosity. Lyria moved to Elias's side, her small hand in his, a symbol of the bond that had started it all. Queen Vera's voice cut through the quiet. "This child trusted a human. She saw courage, compassion and honor where others saw only enemies. If she can understand this, perhaps so can we all. The human commander nodded. It is not easy, but this example, shows us that hope is possible. For hours, discussions took place. Elias acted as a bridge, translating gestures, sharing observations, and demonstrating goodwill through small actions, helping an Arakan soldier with a wounded leg, showing humans how to navigate the terrain safely, and ensuring that Lyria remained protected. By evening, the tension had eased. Representatives from both sides had shared stories, exchanged knowledge, and even laughed at small misunderstandings. Lyria giggled as Elias demonstrated a human trick of balancing a stone on her hand. The Arakan watchers seemed intrigued, observing the human child's innocence and curiosity, and perhaps realizing the potential of cooperation. Queen Vera approached Elias as the sun dipped behind the horizon. Her eyes, sharp yet thoughtful, met his. "You have done more than I expected," she said. "Many humans would have only seen a child as a bargaining piece, a weakness. You saw her as life worth protecting. That is rare, and that is why you are now." Ours. Elias bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I only did what I believed was right." She nodded, her expression softening. Right action has power. It can change minds, hearts, and even the course of history. Remember that. Lyria ran forward, hugging her mother. Then, without hesitation, she turned and wrapped her small arms around Elias. He felt the weight of trust, gratitude, and hope all at once. "You will stay with us," Queen Vera declared. "Not as a prisoner, not as a guest, but as a trusted ally. Protect her, guide her, and through you we can begin to understand one another." Elias smiled, feeling a warmth he had never expected. "I will, always." The team set up camp for the night, the air now filled not with tension but with cautious optimism. Fires flickered softly, illuminating faces once suspicious, now curious. Lyria sat beside Elias, pointing to constellations in the night sky. He explained what humans called them, and she listened intently, asking questions in her limited human words. Through the night, Elias reflected on their journey. Saving a child had been only the first step, but compassion, courage, and moral strength had created a ripple far larger than he had imagined. They had faced danger, judgment, and the weight of history, and in doing so, had begun a new chapter for two species long divided. The following morning, the journey continued, but now with purpose. Arakan scouts guided them safely through the forest, ensuring no further ambushes occurred. Humans observed Arakan tactics, learning from them, and the Arakan learned from humans in turn. Lyria skipped ahead, curious and fearless, a bridge between worlds in her own right. Days passed, and the neutral zone became a meeting place for both species. Trade, communication, and mutual protection were discussed. Elias continued to serve as liaison, his courage and judgment recognized by both sides. Every act of trust, every careful decision, strengthened the fragile alliance. One evening, as twin suns set over the crimson forest, Elias watched Lyria play near the river with a group of Arakan children. They laughed together, climbing rocks, exploring, and sharing stories without words. For Elias, it was proof that even in a world scarred by conflict, humanity's ability to rise above fear and hatred could inspire change. Queen Vera approached, her presence calm but commanding. She looked at Elias, then at Lyria, and finally back at him. "You have done more than protect a child," she said. "You have protected the possibility of peace. That is a gift worth more than any victory in battle." Elias bowed slightly. "It is not a gift, Your Majesty. It is the responsibility of anyone who can act with courage and compassion. Humans have flaws, but we also have the ability to do what is right." She nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "Then let this be remembered. A human, by saving my daughter, has shown that the heart of humanity can shine even in the darkest times. Let it guide us forward." As night fell, Elias looked at the stars through the crimson canopy, feeling hope stronger than fear. The journey ahead would not be easy. Challenges and dangers still waited, but the bond formed here, the bridge between two species, promised a future where courage, empathy, and trust could overcome the divisions of the past. Lyria sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. Elias placed a gentle hand on her back, silently promising to protect her, guide her, and honor the trust they had built together. For in her, and through her, he saw the best of both worlds, the innocence of life, the wisdom of courage, and the hope of peace. In the forests of Veyron 9, a human had saved a child. That act had grown into something far greater than anyone could have imagined, and through it, humanity had proven that courage and compassion were not just words, they were a force capable of changing the universe. And so, the story of Elias Ryder and Lyria, the child of his enemy, became a story of